painting several months ago, and this is a follow-up. I'm doing a painting of the bride, no, of the mother. Let me see if I can get that closer. There you go. The mother-son dance. So the young man there is the groom, and he's dancing with his mother. Lovely picture, and that's what I am going to paint. I have already tweaked this photograph a good bit in Photoshop. In other words, this is my rough sketch. This is not the photograph as I received it from the client. This is my sketch that I put together in Photoshop. As you can see, like, here's a person with no head. It's a jumble of, that's to indicate a group of people in the background. The suspended fabric from the ceiling, giving some ambiance there. I've stretched out the floor, etc., etc. The son and the mother are edited completely separately and then dropped into this piece, and so on and so forth. So, one of the challenges I face whenever I do watercolors, and I was actually have been a watercolor painter longer than I've been an oil painter. Yeah, I was a freelance illustrator for many, many years before I started oil painting. Before I did my first oil painting, let me see. I've been pretty much a freelance illustrator, mostly full time, mostly for 22 years before I picked up my first oil painting brush, and then didn't really start oil painting 5 years after that. Anyway, the difference is that the oil painting phase of my career has been by far the most intense and let me see if I can get this playing. Okay, not yet. The oil painting phase of my career has been the most creatively intense. So I have developed, I would say, quite a bit more as an oil painter than I have as a watercolor painter. Though ironically, I've done many more I'm not sure many more, but I've done many more years of watercolor painting. Anyway, be that as it may, I'm a little bit have two personalities when it comes to watercolor painting. I want to be fast and loose and wild the way my oil painting is, and yet my history is more illustrative. Does that make sense? So I've always got this little tug of war going on inside me. Give me just a minute here. I'm going to try to get my monitor up so I can see you guys when you start making chats and comments. Getting there, give me just a minute. There we go. Okay, now I need to turn down the volume so I don't hear you. All right, I have my my monitor all ready to go here, so I can hopefully see you guys when you leave the chat. All right, so I'm schizophrenic. I'm caught between tight and loose, tight and loose. My heart wants to be loose, and I do plenty of loose watercolor paintings. The problem is, or the challenge is, this is a commission, and this is a portrait. So as you can imagine, at least in my world, loose and portrait don't go together. So I've been debating quite a bit how to go about this, and I finally decided I'm going to bite the bullet and do something in a way I don't want to do, which is start out a little bit tight. So to that end, I have here again, this is from my computer printer, Photoshop. There's a filter in Photoshop called Find Edges. So it was able to take, I made a mistake earlier when I pulled this up, you guys were on the wrong camera, sorry about that. It's supposed to look like that. And so the Photoshop went from this to this, so I can trace this fairly easily. Now, this is my watercolor paper. It's Arches not their 300-pound, what is it, 140-pound? And actually hot press, so it's a little bit smooth. That's all right, I like it. And of course, I'm going to use a light table. There you go. Can you see that? Yeah, you can barely see it, can't you? Barely, barely, barely. So I have a piece of paper off my printer taped to the back of this watercolor paper. And the very first thing I'm going to do in executing this painting is trace. Now, some of you may really get a kick out of this. When I was an illustrator for those 30 years, roughly, I was a master of projecting, tracing, gridding, using whatever means possible to capture the image, because that was what was demanded of me as. Let me go ahead and get started painting here. I'm going to zoom in just a bit more. Hang on here a second. That's what was really demanded of me as an illustrator, was the ability to accurately or carefully render an image. I'm trying not to use the word cheat because some of you have finally convinced me that that term is discouraging to you. So usually, I've already used it, so usually when I mention cheating, I follow that statement quickly by saying all cheating is legal, and everybody, quote unquote, everybody does it. That's not technically correct. Rembrandt didn't do it, but all the other great medieval, Renaissance artists did. Now, as I said, this is hard on my personality because I would rather be fast and loose and crazy, but this is a portrait and it's a commission. So the rules, as you can imagine, the rules are a little bit different. The assignment here from my client is, my assignment is accuracy above all. When you, in my opinion, when you're doing a portrait, accuracy is number one. Magic, everything else, brush strokes, composition, blah, 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 is number two. Now, they're very important, number two, but still, they're number two. Now, I know there are people out there who do wild and crazy portraits that are not realistic. We're not talking about that world at all. We're talking about what I would call the real world, where when a client pays you money, pays you good money to do a painting of them, of her and her son, she's paying you to make it look like them. Are you with me? All right. So even though I'd rather be, again, the way I start my oil paintings, and look at me, all this entire painting is going to be right-handed. There's virtually no left-handed painting for me when it comes to sitting at a table like this, sitting at a light table, doing a watercolor. This is not the time for two hands. And as you know, I love painting with two hands, but this is not a time for that. So here I am, one-handed, tongue painting like crazy. You guys know what tongue painting means, right? Right, that's... Right. Most of you already knew that, but I thought just in case there's any newcomers here. What is tongue painting? It's when you stick out your tongue. It's that universal sign of control, controlling your fingers, your hands, your appendages to create the marks you want to create. All right, now having said that, so as you can see, I've come to peace with the fact here today that I can't be wild and crazy, at least at the beginning. I have to be careful and controlled. But having said that, let me give you, and I know many of you, I've heard many of you over the years say, Okay, hang on just a second. I'm almost ready to take this paper now off the back. By the way, it's taped down with removable Scotch tape. I don't know how many of you are aware that they sell at the office supply store, they sell a thing called removable Scotch tape. And again, I'm using a brand name, I don't know if it's Scotch or not, but anyway, it is a tape that's not too sticky, and it's very, very, very helpful. All right, now, can I see this? I'm not sure that I can. Here now is a copy of the full figure, and it goes about approximately there. Here's what I'm going to do. So now I'm looking at my pencil lines that I just left a few minutes ago, and lining up all right. Now I have to very carefully not let those slide, and grab my removable Scotch tape and tape all this down again so that I can finish drawing Vicky and Harrison are the names of the subject here. All right, there we go. And by the way, I didn't even mention, I decided to do my initial tracing here with a brown watercolor pencil. Well, I should have mentioned that my watercolor technique typically is just like my oil painting technique, quite unconventional, quite idiosyncratic. That is to say, I'm the only one I know who does it this way. I didn't set out to be weird, just many years of evolution have made me weird. All right, so the tracing is done. Let me double check, make sure. Oh, no, I'm glad I did that. I missed some lines. So my watercolor technique is quite unconventional. And one of the unconventional aspects of it is that I use watercolor pencils a great deal. And you'll if you watch me, you'll see how that happens. All right. There, I just have the big lines in place. I think I'm done tracing. I don't think I'll do any more tracing throughout the rest of this painting process. Oh, turn my volume up a little bit. Thank you, thank you. Let's try this. Thank you, Kevin, wherever you are. I'll put my monitor back on. Let me know if you would, if that's better. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate that. All right. I will keep this just in case I need to look at it again, but from now on, most of the time, I will be looking at this color copy and working from there. Okay, I was talking about watercolor pencils and how I use them and do really all of my watercolor painting in an unconventional manner. Reaching back here for a triangle because I've got some horizontal lines here that I don't want to mess around and, you know, eyeball pretend that I'm capturing a perfect vertical or horizontal line. I'm just going to go ahead and use a combo to make sure that they are. If somebody would let me know if my volume is okay now, that would be wonderful. Thanks, Kevin, for that heads up. I don't know how long ago you said it before I caught it. Okay, and then the base of the people's feet is right about here. So the people come down to there. And that's horizontal as well. And the tops of the people's heads is about here. So now you can see, now you can see, can't you, that I'm giving vent to my normal, wildly crazy creative side. By the way, I'm drawing everything else. Now, let me take just a second. Since I have started with, by tracing, I just want to be clear about the downside of starting a painting with a tight drawing. I think it's quite obvious. If you start any kind of painting or drawing with a tight tracing, the tendency is that you stay in that mode, and it's what I call the coloring book syndrome, right? Most of us in Western civilization, most of us grew up with coloring books, and the goal as a 7-year-old kid was to stay in the lines, right? You remember that? And the kid in class, or the brother or sister, whoever it may be, the person that could stay in the lines the best was hailed as the best colorer. And as you can imagine, as we've grown up into adulthood, we've come to see that, oh, no, the one who stays in the lines the best is probably not the best artist. So the danger is staying tight. All right, I'm done. Oh, and the brown that I used here is a watercolor. So as you know, all of these lines are water soluble. It's decision time now. I'm going to put this image maybe up here where I can see it a little bit. Just glance up and look at it. It's decision time. Okay. that was me thinking. That was the sound of me thinking. Did you recognize that? I'm going to switch to a dark blue. I have a number of different brands of, or purple might be good enough. Yeah, purple's good enough. And over here on the corner camera, it lets you watch me sharpen this pencil. Are we there? Yeah. I use the heck out of these pencil sharpeners, by the way. And let me give you a word of wisdom. These pencil sharpeners are awesome. Am I on camera? Barely. Yeah. These are great. Generally speaking, do not buy the pencil sharpeners like this that have a plastic container around them or are in any other way made fancy. Why? Because the blades go dull and then the thing around it is worthless, and you don't want to throw it away because you paid extra for the thing around it. So just buy the cheap ones. Did you get that? All right. Now, I'm just looking at the photograph. Of course, it's not the right size, so I have to do a fair amount of interpretation. And I'm drawing in purple. Some of you should be saying, why purple? Let me answer that this way, and I don't know how many of you are regular viewers of my channel, but I'm going to put it this way. In my opinion, there is always a healthy tug of war inside you, inside the artist, between realism and art. Realism and good art, if you will. Now, clearly, I'm not talking here about people who work in a hyper-realistic, photorealistic, super-realistic, or whatever you want to call it, technique. And nothing wrong with that. As my old friends know, occasionally I work in super-realism, and it's fun. But that's not my normal language, and I don't consider it the best kind of artwork. I'm sorry to all those of you who made it. I have friends who are way more famous than I am. I mean, close friends. I don't mean like associates. I mean friends who are in some ways way more successful than I am, who are hyper realists. And I love, just like everybody else, I love their work. Anybody want? I'll go ahead and name names. I'll name a name. David Stickle, Stickel, I think. Dear old friend, haven't seen. We were in a gallery together for many years. He's a great guy, wonderful, wonderful human being, and does astonishingly. Look him up. Now, don't leave this channel while I'm talking. No, you can go ahead and leave. Just come back. David Stickle. Amazing, amazing, and way more than just realism, though I must add. He goes beyond realism, and you'll see he calls himself an artist of reflection, and nearly all of his paintings entail magic. So that's the way David incorporates his magic into his realism, is by focusing almost always on reflection, literal reflections in glass and mirrors and so forth. If you look, it's amazing work, amazing. He's won more national and international awards than I can shake a stick at, than I will ever win. So kudos to him, but I don't usually do, and it's a carefully chosen decision on my part. I do not do usually realism. So I was back to, why am I doing purple? Because there is within me always a tug of war, a battle between the realism, the realist impulse, and the what I will call the magic impulse. What is it that infuses a painting with magic? And it's usually, well, realism is one form of magic. People look at a hyper-realistic painting and always, mine included, our jaws drop open and go, oh my goodness, look at that, wow. So see, that's a form of aesthetic pleasure. Now, I have decided for myself that is not the highest form of aesthetic pleasure. That is just one form. And again, in my case, I don't think it's the highest form. I think a human being experiences a higher, more joy juice gets released into their brain, not when they observe a painting or drawing where the artist has done all the work and everything is perfect. That is impressive, and we enjoy it. We do. That's real joy that we enjoy, that we experience when we look at that. But I think most human beings derive a higher degree of pleasure when they look at a painting or a drawing and where the artist has skillfully combined just enough realism to convey the image, but incorporated enough extra non-realism, beyond realism, magic, so that the viewer's brain, the viewer's mind, actually has to finish the subject matter, has to finish the painting. And I think that the amount of joy juice released in those brains is greater than the amount of aesthetic pleasure, joy juice, released in the minds of people who are looking at hyperrealism. So again, my opinion, you're welcome to it. You're welcome to disagree with it. Don't disagree too fast. I've been thinking about this for 40 years, 50 years. 50 years, yeah. 50 years ago, I was an art student. Yeah. In college, yeah. 50 years ago, I was already working as a professional illustrator. I had my first job as a professional illustrator at age 18. Yeah, I did. I put myself through college by working largely as an artist. So why am I using purple? Because purple's not realistic. It's a little infusion, an easy infusion of magic. Does that make sense? All right. I'm going to check. Nobody said my volume is good enough yet. Let me check on my monitor over here, my iPad monitor. See if it's. So why am I using purple? Because purple's not realistic. It's a little infusion. Okay, let me work on this a little bit. All right. Okay, I just raised it a little bit. Let's see if it starts getting better. Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2, 3. All right. Okay, I just raised it a little bit. Let's see if it starts getting. Yeah, I think that's better. Okay, I'm going to turn it down now so we're not getting feedback. That's not exciting, isn't it? All right, and now I am drawing in, blobbing in. Let's make this one a woman. Oh, let's make her head tilt. Yeah. One of the mistakes I've discovered in myself over the years when I've drawn many crowds of people. Part of the reason for that is yes, weddings, but even more than that, I used to paint tons and tons of festivals, outdoor festivals, where there are 50,000 people on the street, and I would try to capture that festival and those people. So I did a lot of crowds of people, and one of the things that I've learned is make sure that they're not all like soldiers standing at attention. So tilt their heads. Start out by making their heads go one way or the other, and that really helps. All right, all 4 of you watching. I don't know who you are, but my monitor says there's 4 of you. Woohoo! If you care to identify yourself, please do so. If not, you may remain anonymous. And I don't know if you are old-timers or newcomers, of course. If you're a newcomer, you may be surprised to know that I have over 1,500 almost all live videos on my YouTube channel. I used to do what I call daily art adventures, and I did them. I averaged 5 days a week, so it wasn't quite daily, but it was every working day. I averaged 5 days a week for 4 years. I did nearly 1,500 daily art adventures, and then my life changed. A lot of things changed in 1920 or 1920. Listen to me. I'm sure a lot of things changed in 1920. Thank goodness I was not there to observe it. I meant to say 2020. And I've been promising for 4 years to say, I promise I'm going to start broadcasting again. Some of my old timers went, yeah, we've heard that enough times. But as I announced on my YouTube channel a couple of weeks ago, that day has finally come, and I am going to be broadcasting. Hello, Matt's Art Stuff. Good, the volume is good. Thank you for that feedback. Matt, I recognize your name, right? Where are you from? You don't have to answer that. I don't want to violate your anything. Okay, where? Now, I think you can see the photograph here. Vicky and Harrison are wearing black. And I even, in Photoshop, I cranked this all the way to the lightest setting, and no more detail showed up. So I am stuck. I have to make up everybody. And I'm not going to show much detail in here, of course, but I tried to see if I could squeeze a little bit more out of it, and I was, alas, unable to do so. This painting is 16 by 20. And by the way, when that's what they're paying for, that's what they ordered, 16 by 20. So this is 16 by 20, and as you can see, I'm going all the way to the edges. One of the decisions I need to make as an artist is, do I make the image, the painting 16 by 20, but put it on, 20 by 24 inch paper with a 2-inch or 1 inch, whatever, 2-inch border all the way around the end. And I decided in this case to make the page 16 by 20 and do the painting all the way to the edge. That raises a question for those whoever's going to frame this. And I sanded the edges here that I cut with a razor. I sanded them to taper them off and try to make them look like a natural edge. My preference would be for this to be framed in a shadow box frame so that the paper is visible all the way to the edges. Matt's Art Stuff in Pennsylvania. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it. That's kind of fun. All right, fun to know. Here is my smaller, actually. Oops, I didn't get any water open here. And I all of a sudden just realized I'm not quite ready to go because I don't have any clean water. Hang on just a second. I'm going to stand up and see if, usually I have extra clean water sitting around here. Yeah, here we do. Here we do. Is that the right terminology? You can't see me, but you can hear me. Oh, there we go. Whoops, I have plenty of clean water. All right. Whew. Saved by advanced preparation. So get rid of this dirty water. Oh, that was dangerous, wasn't it? That was foolish to carry that water across in front of over my painting. All right, so we're all ready to go. This is me thinking. This is me still thinking. This is not very exciting live broadcast. Come, watch a man think. Thinking a long time. While I'm on the subject, I, like you, if you're an artist, continue to grow as an artist. People say to me all the time, just a little bit of my history in case you don't know me. People say, when did you start painting? And my answer is, when I went off to kindergarten. I do remember this. I clearly remember getting off the bus on the first day of kindergarten, marching with all my other little 5-year-old buddies, marching toward the school and thinking, I'm an artist. Isn't that funny? It's just funny that identity. And it's completely because my daddy was an artist, so I wanted to be like him. He was not a professional artist, but he was a very good painter. And so that's how I wanted to be like him. There was a reason I was telling you. Oh, so I've been evolving. I've been progressing for, let's say that's age 5, 66 years then. That was 66 years ago. Do the math now, you know how old I am. And I continue to progress because I continue to think. I am, at this season of my life, not painting nearly as much as I used to. And it's not necessarily because I'm old. That's part of it, but it's because I used to paint like an absolute maniac. I'm proud of my young self, especially from age 50 to 65, 50 to 60. Every morning I got up early, jumped in the car, ran out and painted, and would do 1, 2, or 3 paintings, sometimes in a day. Hundreds of painting a year. Got it? That was my self declared career path. I decided lots of paintings done quickly would make me a better artist than a few paintings done perfectly. So that's what I decided, and that's what I did. I'm saying this because I'm sitting here thinking, And I'm always thinking, and I'm always advancing. Here's my latest thought. I'll be very specific. 3 or so weeks ago, and a painting came up, I don't know, on Instagram or Facebook or YouTube, I don't know where, of a fairly well-known, I think he's an OPA, Oil Painters of America, OPA master, I think. He's certainly an OPA signature member. Very, very, very good painter. And he had just won a plein air competition. Oh, his name, Ned, N-E-D, Mueller, M-U-E-L-L-E-R. Look him up. You'll go, oh yeah, he is kind of good. And I looked at his plein air painting and I went, dang. It irritates me to see somebody who's better than me. Bear with me, because that statement comes very quickly, is followed by, and it inspires the heck out of me. When I see somebody and go, dang, they're better than me, I want to know. It puts fire in my belly. What do they know that I don't know? And here's the language I've been using, especially the last 3 weeks, although it's been more than that. That was the culmination of a number of experiences. And it was this. The greats among us, what set Ned Mueller apart was what he saw in his head, what he envisioned. His imagination is better than mine. And boy, it frosts me to say that. At the same time, it puts fire in my bones because I go blah, 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 blah. So I don't want to operate on cruise control. I'm sitting here right now going, you could say, what would Ned Mueller do? I got a little bracelet, WWNM do. I have other friends too. There's a local friend, JJ Jiang, J-I-A-N-G, JJ Jiang, J-I, he's Chinese American, J-I-A-N-G, good buddy, good buddy, and ridiculously good artist. And sometimes I think, man, what would JJ do? It's like WWJJD. It's the vision, somehow, and I believe that's true for all of us artists. What is it that sets the greats greater? And it's a picture they have in their head. It's something that's going on in their head that may not be going on quite as well in my head. Does that make sense? All right, back to my eraser, my pencil sharpener for a minute. I've decided to, after thinking for a while, I'm going to do this without glasses. I've not, what do they call this color? Carmine. I think these fingers are too small. All right. Ooh, I like that. But I'll tell you what's in my thinking, by the way. Okay, so I sat there and looked at this page for a long time, and I thought, the next thing what I really want to do next is washes, great big washes, and I am going to do that. But then I thought, yeah, but I'm not positive that the pencil lines that I have are quite stout enough, firm enough to withstand. I don't want all of this to disappear. Does that make sense? I don't want it to. That would not be a happy moment if I did a wash and this all disappeared. So I decided then, okay, so what I want to do, what I'm really excited about is doing a wash shortly. But before I do the wash, I decided I really want to beef up some of these lines. When I do the wash, I'm probably going to be especially careful about their faces to make sure that, because these are, as you understand, I hope, these are watercolor pencils, right? So they're water soluble. They're basically made out of, when you were kids and you had a tray of watercolor paints, right? And maybe you still do, nothing wrong with that, I have those too. a tray. It's basically that tray put into pencil form. So as soon as you add water, it goes all smooshy, right? So I don't want it to go so smooshy that I lose the work I've done. So I'm just adding one more color. The other thing that I'm doing, part of the reason that I enjoy and follow this approach to watercolor painting is, again, it's what I call the magic. This is not to achieve realism. This is to achieve visual magic. Those two things, at least in my world, it's helpful to think of those two things as opposed to each other. Realism versus magic. And magic is just, of course, one word. There are many that could be used. And by the way, please notice that the way I'm holding the pencil now is, in fact, the Dan Nelson approved method. I was not doing that when I was doing their faces, right? That was a control freak grip. What I'm doing now is the making interesting marks grip. Side saddle, if you will. Any kind of side saddle will do. Anything. This is a control grip, and there's a right time for that. And I was doing that when I was tracing, but this is not the time for that now. This is a time for a free grip, if you will, making interesting marks. All right, I think I've got adequate lines there. Now for some fun. Here's the brush I'm going to use. It is a 3-inch brush. Yes, you heard that right. 3 inches. And you can see my palette here. This brush is too big to fit in any one of those little wells, which is fine with me, because what I'm after at the moment is this bottle is empty. Give me just a minute to fill this up with this clean water before that water gets too contaminated. Did you hear that? Be careful not to drizzle that across my painting. All right. Okay, back to the 3-inch brush, and I'm trying to mix up a yellow, orange, brown color. Got it? All right. Okay, I'm now spraying the entire, almost said canvas. I did well to worry about losing my image, because it really is fading pretty quickly. That's why I'm daubing up here up at their faces. Likewise here. There are different kinds of watercolor pencils, different brands and different qualities. There's one brand called Inktense. Watercolor. It's called ink, but it's a watercolor pencil, and their claim to fame, what they're proud of is that once you wet an Inktense watercolor pencil, the resulting color is permanent. It is harder to pick up. And I was pretty careful not to use, I have dozens, scores of watercolor pencils, and I was pretty careful not to use the Inktense brand. So every color that all the pencil that I have on my paper at this time is very washable or fugitive. It can be washed away quite easily. Now, I hope that you can see from from this camera here, what for me is one of the main appeals, I'm looking at my photograph here, one of the main appeals, one of the things that draws me to using watercolor pencils, and it's what you see happening here. The word in watercolor land would be called blossom. That blossom is what happens when you have a color on your paper and you add water to it, it goes, it expands, it blossoms. And that is what has happened, especially with one of these colors, the carmine that I used a while ago. And that, to me, that's delightful. That's magic. That's something. Here's a rule of thumb in art and in painting. Magic usually consists in the stuff that you didn't plan or control. Okay, I've never said that before, but that's a pretty good starting point. What constitutes magic in a painting? And the answer is the stuff that you didn't control, that happened by accident, if you will, like flow, in watercolor especially, flow and blossom. Those things you don't control strictly. You try to control them a little bit. So there, that's a good, I think, a good general description of what is magic versus what is realism. Realism is stuff that you control to make the medium do what you want it to do. Magic is the stuff that goes beyond your control. You don't really know exactly what's going to happen. All right, a little boring break here because I'm going to keep the camera going, but it's hair dryer time. Okay, that is only half dry. I'm just making this up as we go. I'm going to jump up over here. I have my big watercolor kit. And I think I have here, yeah. I have some pre-mixed little spray bottles with watercolor already in them, and I better make sure that they work before I spray them. Ooh, purple. Good enough. What made me decide to do purple? It's a very good question. I mean, what made me decide to do spray? Very good question. I was just thinking, what can I do to make, orange. What can I do to make this a little more magic? There was a little bit too much control going on the page, a little bit too much control. Let's blob up some of that purple off their faces. A little bit's okay. There's too much control, so I looked over to my right and said, oh, wait, I got those little spray bottles. Good enough? Back to drying now again for a few minutes. You know what? I bet I can turn down the volume while I do this, can I? Yeah, I'm going to do that. Turn it way down so you don't have to hear that racket. Whew, sorry about that. By the way, just for what it's worth, little tip. Again, for what it's worth for you artists, I do not usually use a hair dryer. I usually use a heat gun for two reasons. One, it's faster, and number two, it's quieter. And the quieter really is important to me. I loathe that noisy thing. It's also way more dangerous, right? You can burn the place down with a heat gun. It like gets up to 400 degrees or something. Hey, I decided, though, while I was doing that, I should show you guys a trick. Oh yeah, perfect. All right. For any of you aspiring or perhaps already semi-experienced watercolor painters, the tape on the back of the paper trick. So this is not 300 pound. 300 pound is the really nice stiff watercolor paper. You know, it's kind of stiff as a board, if you will, and it's really nice. Not very good for tracing, as you can imagine, right? Because it's so thick, it's so opaque, very hard to trace with 300 pound paper. This is plenty adequate, being 140 pound, but of course it tends to curl. So this is a little trick you might not know. I should have done it, well, I couldn't do it at the beginning because I needed to see through the paper to trace it, but my tracing is done. So now Plus, I didn't think about it, can you tell? But if I had thought about it, I wouldn't have done it because I had to trace. So I'm going to do all around the edge and then an X through the middle, and just as much as I think. This will actually help a good bit in keeping the paper flat, which, as you know, is a bit of a challenge for watercolor painters. There's a number of different tricks you can use to keep a page flat. This is just one of them. One of the other tricks is, and I did this a whole bunch in college, partly because I was so poor as a college student, I couldn't afford good watercolor paper. So I bought cheaper paper and I stretched it all. This is one of the tricks I did learn in college. I didn't learn many tricks, but I did learn this one. So I soaked each sheet of paper in a pan of water for, I can't remember how long, but at least for a couple hours. And I'm trying to remember, was it overnight ever? Maybe. A good long while. Soak it in water, and then tape it with wet, old-fashioned wet packaging, you know, like lickable brown tape. They still sell that. I've looked lately, and this is still a trick worth knowing. So you soak your paper for several hours, then tape it to a board and let it dry. And basically, once that has happened, all the warp is out of that paper. It's not going to warp very much after that. So that's a good trick if you want to know how to do, one way to do watercolor painting without the paper warping all over the place on you. That's one trick. But you have to buy a few things. You have to buy a tray, and you have to buy the right kind of tape, and you have to have a board. But for some time, even after college, I continued to use that trick. All right, so there's one trick. Does that make sense? Good. So that will take a lot of the warp out of the board for the rest of this painting. Now I'm back to asking myself, yeah, I'm going to go to, well, hang on, I'm not sure what I'm going to go to. I was going to say a pen, like a felt tip pen. And it dawned to me, I think that I have here, conveniently, a rapidograph pen that already has brown ink in it. The question is, it's been sitting there for a couple weeks in my drawer. Rapidograph pen. Any guys recognize this animal? It used to be the workhorse of the graphic arts industry. I'm not going to use it unless it flows really well, though. Okay, I think, by the way, here's another good tip for watercolor. And this is, by the way, Arches, French, Arche, 156 pound, blah, blah, natural white, hot pressed. There we go. The reason, here's a good tip. If you ever have a piece of paper that's exactly the same as the paper you're working on, hang on to that, because you can use that to test things, just like I did just then with the rapidograph pen. All right, and this, can I zoom you guys? I think I can. Hang on just a second while I give you a little bit of a wild ride. Forgive me. Let's see how that does. Am I on? Yeah, there we go. Not too bad. I'll try to stay there in the... All right, so now the bad thing about this pen is you have to hold it quite vertical, so I can't hold it side saddle. But I'm nevertheless going to try to draw as if I were holding it side saddle. Now here is a very important caveat, if you will. I am now using an extremely sharp line making tool, right? And what is our tendency when we're holding a sharp line making tool? The tendency, I want to see if there's a ring on that finger, and there is. The tendency is to make sharp linear marks, definitive, hyper-definitive or realistic marks. And I hope that you can see, let me change this just a little bit. I hope you can see that I'm trying to avoid, I can see if I can zoom in anymore. I'm not sure that I can. No, that's about it. All right. I'm trying to avoid the kids might use the term anal retentive. It kills me. I don't think they have any idea who Freud is. No, I don't mean any idea, but I don't think they're really conversant with Freud per se. But they do use that. They do use the terminology correctly. Hyper control. Another way to describe this is, while I'm making these marks with this sharp tool. And by the way, I'm not going to use. I am going to use the felt tip markers here in a bit. Well, hello. First of all, UO12. How fun! Thank you for thinking of me. That is very good. You owe 12. I owe a lot more than that. I'm glad to hear you only owe 12. Let me look at this one's ear. Yeah. This pen is not flowing quite as nicely as I would like, so I may not stay with it very long. But while I am, I talk about this quite a bit when I'm doing oil painting, and it certainly applies to watercolor painting and drawing of any kind. Remember I talked earlier about this tug of war, the civil war that exists inside the artist, the battle between control, realism, and freedom. I want my marks to be somewhat realistic, accurate, representational, correct. Correct? I do, of course. At the same time, it's more important, and that's really an important phrase. It's even more important. It is important that they be representational, accurate, realistic, but it's even more important that they be interesting lines. The quality of the line itself is more important. Both are important, but one's more important. And the quality of the line itself is more important than the accuracy of the mark. Whew. I think part of the reason I'm so passionate, or that is so clear in my mind, is that that's not the way I started out. When I was an art student, as an art student, we played around with abstract expressionism and all kinds of silly adolescent stuff, encouraged therein very much by our art professors of the mid-70s. But pretty much still, I never really lost my core grounding as a realistic artist, and I'm glad that I didn't. But it took quite a while for me to let go of the delusion that, quote, realism is what wins the day, because it turns out it is not. There are three things that win the day. You ready for a major art instruction? There are three elements in every work of art that cause human beings to like to look at that work of art. There are three things. One is a degree of realism. And this is very unpopular with the current art Gestapo, in most of the university art departments. That's a long story, won't get into it. They try to tell us that people don't care about realism, but of course they're silly. Ordinary human beings, as I like to say, all human beings, except of course for those with Masters of Fine Arts degrees, all human beings get a kick out of realism. I've already said that earlier today. All human beings get a kick out of realism. They do. I do. You do. Everybody does, unless you have an MFA, because then they beat the crap out of you to make you pretend you don't care anymore. But anyway, but realism is only one element. There are two other elements, and the other two elements are actually slightly more important than realism. Whoa! And those two elements are, and these are all in opposition, in tension to each other. These don't go together, these push apart. Our job as an artist is to try to push them together. In not necessarily in this order. Realism, I'll call that element number one. If it's a cow, it should look like a cow, and people get a kick out of it if it looks like a cow. You with me? Element number two is what I call a history of human movement. Now, in oil painting or acrylic painting, that is typically called brushstrokes. And the typical art professor will say, no, I want to see brushstrokes. I want to see brushstrokes. But most of the time, in my experience, they don't explain why brushstrokes are important, so to speak. And I believe I have over the decades come to understand why they are important. And it is because when you make a mark that is interesting, the viewer, whoever's looking at your mark, can look at it and say, a creature like myself was here. And he or she held the brush, or in this case the pen, in a certain manner and moved in a certain manner. Now, I know that all sounds very analytical, because it is, but I think that's the thing about what we typically call brushstrokes, is we get a kick out of seeing that a creature like us made those marks. All right, that's all I'm going to say about that. Third element, and again, these are in tension with each other. They don't work together, they work apart, and it's our job as artists to try to pull them together. So don't misunderstand me. Don't think, oh yeah, if I make, History of Human Movement, it'll look more like the cow. No. It'll precisely look less like the cow, because you're leaving it rough to some extent. All right, the third element is very simple. Anyone that's taken even so much as a junior high art class knows this, and it is called the principles of design. So what is it that makes a piece of art fun to look at? I'm talking here about two-dimensional artist drawings or painting. What is it that makes it fun to look at? Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture. 6 elements. So the composition is more important than realism. Texture is more important than realism. Interesting line is more important than accurate line. Interesting shape is more important than accurate. Accurate is important, but interesting is more important. Are you following me? So I'm very much thinking that way as I'm doing all these lines right here. I want them realistic, so to speak. I want them accurate. I want this to look like this man's pant leg, even though these lines will probably, I'd be surprised if they even are visible in the final artwork, because it's going to be so dark. But I put them there just in case they show up. But it's more important that the lines be pleasant, interesting, free. And while I'm on this subject, I'll finish out marks just a little bit more. Interesting marks are made with interesting movements. So if you are, in other words, if I had a class full of art students in front of me, I would say, I don't want you focusing on the marks that you leave on your page, on your canvas. I want you focusing on how you are moving. I want you moving like a ballet dancer, so to speak, if I can call what my right hand is doing right now ballet-like. I want you focusing more on your movements, and I can, because I really believe. What do bad movements look like? Bad movements, frankly, look like this. Control. I'm sorry, I'm off camera. Now, there's a time and a place for that. I did some of that up here when I was doing the pencil earlier, but there's only a place for that. It is not the place. It is a place. All right, I'm just about ready to ditch this pen. It's a bit of a challenge. The lines are a little too thin, but I'm glad I did it. The part that I did has quite a nice look. Let me pick this up for you guys just for a second and see if you can see that. Yeah, there you go. And I hope when you look at that, you say, oh, yeah. The word that most people would use would be the quality of line. There's a playfulness, a freedom about the lines. They're pretty... Okay, now, enough of that. I'm going to go to one of these cheap, easy pens. And by the way, you really have to be careful when you buy these pens. Many of them say waterproof, but do not trust the label, okay? Because some of them are not waterproof. They just say they are. All right, and the other downside of these pens is they, as an artist speaking, they run out of ink outrageously quickly. There we go. I found the one that works. Found the one that I like at the moment. And I think I can hold this side saddle. And yes, oh, good. Okay, so now that I've got an interesting problem, juxtaposition, if you will. I'm using a tool that makes a slightly different mark than the Rapidograph pen did. And I don't want, so I have to keep that in mind. I can't pretend that it is making the same kind of mark because it clearly is not. Does that make sense? I really get a kick out of drawing crowds of people. I really do. It's one of my favorite things in the world. Let me talk for just a second about some of where I'm going with this. Some of my technique. I usually am quite careful to call these watercolor paintings, I call them watercolor sketches because I want to draw a distinction, rather academic, I admit, but I want to draw a distinction between what I'm doing and what a traditional watercolorist does. This is not traditional watercolor. The traditional watercolor, of course, does not use watercolor pencils and certainly does not use ink. And as I often say, I could no snowball chance in hell, blah, 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 that I could ever get into Watercolor Society of America, WSA. Watercolor Society, there must be one in Europe too, I don't know. But I could not get into Watercolor Society of America with one of these watercolors. So I'm careful to call them watercolor sketches because I am using several unconventional techniques. The pen, this pen, both pens that I've used so far, and the watercolor pencils, and there will be more. I give myself permission to employ opaque watercolor, and that's really the killer. That's the one that really puts me out of the club. Hello, BJ. I'm reading your comment. Svenska. Are you from Sweden? Poland? Wonder what you'll do with those bacon-esque background faces. Yes. Oh, thanks for asking. They will stay rather bacon-esque. I don't know if you're familiar with my oil paintings and my oil painting wedding paintings, which is the main thing I do as an oil painter. Hang on just a second. Let me. Well, while I'm talking to you, hello. What color do here again? Here's my go-by photograph. Yeah, I think I better start darkening stuff over here. So I'm gonna mix up some brown, a little bit of black. Don't tell anybody I use black. Real artists don't use black except when they do. Okay, I'm not sure that's the right darkness. Okay, bacon-esque, that's wonderful, that's funny, thank you. Bacon-esque faces in the background. Delightful description. They're going to stay quite abstract. In fact, here's, generally speaking, when you're painting in a... my technique, by the way, I call, and I didn't make this up, I call abstract realism. Somebody else coined that term, and I stole it because I thought that's perfect. Abstract realism. I'm definitely a realist artist, but it's obvious that I consider the abstract elements to be paramount over the realist elements, and that is exactly the case. I do. Yes, what you just heard me say a minute ago. Line, shape, color, design, value, texture are all paramount over realism. Realism's important, but line, shape, color, design, value, texture are more important. All right, so working in this medium, not sure, it's a little stiff. Just give it a spray. Oh, sorry, guys, I lost you there, didn't I? Hang on just a second. Let me back up a little bit. Okay, sorry about that. You didn't see what I was doing. You got to see my face. Wasn't that a treat? So, I think this brush is too small. That's giving me problems. Let's go to a bigger brush. Yeah, here I got a 2-inch brush now. Let's try that. Okay, in the realm of what I call abstract realism figures, over the line is when you start trying to render facial features. Eyes, nose, mouth, ears, and so forth, okay? Because at this degree of abstraction, when you start doing facial features, it tends to look cartoony. So I am careful most of the time to make the facial features quite abstract. As you can see, perhaps in some of these, I have where the lines are, I just have a horizontal line going across the face. And even that might be too much. And if it is, I will diminish that. I'll dial that down later in the painting process. All right, now let's go back to some brownish stuff and begin to do some of the background. Again, here's my go by my photograph. Yeah. By the way, just in case you're worried, no, I am not going to continue this broadcast until I finish the painting. I expect the painting to take, I guess, 4 or 5 hours. I would guess that would be a bit much of a broadcast. I'm already well over the industry standard, if you will, for YouTube live videos. I must be well past an hour. Hello, Svenska. You're Swedish. Wonderful. Oh, actually taking notes. Bless your heart. PJ, have you watched me in the past, or are you brand new, friend? I did many videos, 1,500 live videos, roughly speaking, between 2017 and 2021 about. And then my life took another direction, which I'm very happy about. But my broadcasting for a long time fell off a good bit. The new direction entails basically everything you might see on my other new YouTube channel, which is called Dan Nelson Big Picture. Besides being an artist, I am a pretty serious musician, as you'll see on that other channel. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, and so I've given myself permission at this stage of my life and career to go back to my music with a little bit more seriousness than I was able to do when I was simply Dan the Art Man. So I'm quite excited about that. I was thinking earlier today, if just to give you some idea, if by some, if a genie appeared out of a bottle, the proverbial genie out of the bottle, and said, put a gun to my head and said, okay, for the last 10 years of your productive career, you have to choose between art and music. You cannot do both. Which would you do? And my answer would be music. Even though probably my greater skill is in art, my soul, my heart is more in music. Isn't that crazy? So I grew up in a very musical family, very musical. That is to say, master's degrees from Indiana University and so forth. Those of you who may be familiar with Indiana University. Anyway, I think 4 masters and 1 doctorate degree in my siblings and 1 sibling-in-law. Most of my siblings are conductors and have been conductors and teachers and played in orchestras and so on and so on and so forth. So compared to them, I'm a slacker. But I'm not compared to them, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything other than... But I am happily back in the saddle of broadcasting. I've been promising for years now that I would be back to broadcasting often, and I had to get a number of things, not the least of which technical issues, worked out before I could start broadcasting a lot again. So, but that day has finally come, and I'm broadcasting, or broadcasting and posting. Not all of it is. Not all of it is live by any means. In fact, most of it is not. But I'm glad to have worked out a number of technical issues. The fun, see, let me explain myself a little bit. Let me make excuses. Get out the violin. The funny part is, I did nearly 1,500 broadcasts. Took a break, and when I came back, it's like all technical hell broke loose, and I found myself unable to broadcast again. I won't go into why. It was technical issues anyway, but I have replaced cameras, replaced microphones, replaced Wi-Fi broadcasters, replaced our Wi-Fi, and anyway, just a whole bunch of things. But hallelujah, I'm finally able to do what I'm doing today. I don't know if you notice, I don't think there have been any breaks in my stream. I hope there have not been any. We're paying, we're in it, and anyway, all these things I had to discover. Oh, what? I have to go with Google Fiber? What? I have to go with their premium? What? So it's been that kind of discovery process. This tray of watercolors, by the way, I do have a bigger one. I have a larger one that I consider my sort of professional watercolor tray, but I end up using this one. I think I bought this in 1972. Isn't that funny? At the time, I was a musician, not an artist, and I had a gig, a playing gig in 1972, one night where I got paid $50 in 1972 as a college student. And as soon as I got that $50, I went to the local art store and bought art supplies. So I don't know if I was more of an artist or more of a musician. I took my music money and bought art stuff. Isn't that funny? And this was the tray that I bought. So I've had it for 50, how many years is that? 1970. All right, I think I'm going to stop here. I'm going to go back and forth. Hello, PJ. Thanks for answering. Oh, and UO12. Thank you. Thank you for capturing my silliness. Real artists don't use black. That's. I have a list of commonly held artistic myths, and that is one of them. That is one of them. Artists don't use black. You hear that in art school. You hear that in art lessons. And it's true. Until they do. Right. Thank you. And PJ, you said one more thing. You can't. Oh, wait. Thank you. All right, PJ. Please follow PJ's example. And if you think you like me, send me a note. I like you. Yes, no, maybe. If you think you like me, be sure to check out, go to Dan Nelson Big Picture. That's the name of my other new channel. On that channel, I am an artist and a musician and a writer and a philosopher, theologian, historian. I'm the true me. I'm the real me. On this channel, I'm mostly just Dan the Art Man, nice and safe and not too dangerous. On the other channel, I make no promises about not being dangerous. Now, I'm not political. I don't mean that, but free to be the who I really am, actually. And if you want to check it out, please do. I'm writing 3 books, well, 5 books, 6 books at the moment, but 3 are very close to publishing. And I'm reading one of them, the first book, and it is a Christian book, but very unconventional. And if you're not a Christian, I hope you would find the book entertaining. Anyway, that's all I'm going to say about that. Hello, Luis, from greetings from Mexico. Excellent. Hello, Denise Paradise. Wow, Paradise. Denise Paradise weaving Hannah's net. Yeah, when I looked at the palette earlier, it seemed to fit better upper left, but I will try anything. Thank you. Let's start a cult. Yes, let's. Oh, thank you so much. Let me go back to just for a minute. Let me show you a little bit of what I've been doing while we've been jabbering. I'm going to continue painting on my own, and I'll describe a little bit about my process. I'm going to go back and forth between watercolor and pens, watercolor and pencils, watercolor and an occasional opaque watercolor, back and forth, and it just builds up little by little by little by little. Does that make sense? Some of the things I like about what's going here, I love the believe this, you can't see that very well, can you? I love the pink that's coming through because of the initial, turns out carmine pencil that I used. But at the moment, there's a little bit too much pink. So I'm going to pick up a blue pencil, maybe green, no doubt, green and blue, and do some more drawing, and then apply water to that and let it blossom, and just have all kinds of fun. So again, it'll be building up. I don't do like a lot of people would think, oh, if it's pen and ink and watercolor, you do all the pen and ink first and then the watercolor. No, not for me. I do both, back and forth, and even a little bit of opaque here and there. So that's it. Oh, this has been great fun. Thank you, all of you, for chatting. I appreciate that very much. And you feel free to leave a comment. Those of you who are going to watch this later. And I look forward to being back again soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.